We good?
Yeah, straight.
So today we're going to talk about an ancient philosophy called Stoicism. And I can already hear everybody going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's a
Graffiti podcast.
Yeah, graffiti podcast. What the fuck is wrong with you? I understand. I get it. But the reason why we're talking about it is because it's such a, why do I always forget this word? It's rational. It's such a rational way of thinking. It's like, you know, a lot of the things that we talk about are social issues among the graffiti culture. And I was thinking about that on the way here. Like, we're trying to address, I guess you could call them issues, but I mean, I don't know. That's subjective. But a lot of the things that we see that could be corrected or improved in the culture, I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Stoicism. Let's fucking just get into that. So the reason why we're talking about it is because the social issues, it's such a, like I said, it's such a rational way of thinking. And if everybody in the world followed this philosophy, there would be so many less issues, like worldwide. I mean, as far as like, I felt like I was super comfortable on my way here, and now that the mics are on, I'm like, ugh.
That's how it happens, though. You know, just basing it on our own shit is going to be the easiest way to even crack it, right? It's like, by no means do we consider ourselves like professors or well versed in a sense, like break out your books and take fucking notes. This is a matter of like something that we believe in, that we are attempting to apply to our daily lives, and that we feel as if you don't already know about it, it's something worth checking into,
right? And
doing the same, and us to all kind of learn these things together. That's
good. That makes a lot of sense, because like I think that's something that I thought we needed to address too, because like if there's somehow some academic stumbles upon this thing and is like, these motherfuckers don't know shit. And you're right. Like, I mean, we're students of this thing, and we're actually like really just scratching the surface of it. And so the thing about Stoicism that's so interesting is that it, like if you're following this philosophy, it's a way of just focusing on things that you can control. So, you know, outside people's opinions, you know, like just petty shit, like stuff that we've talked about, like people talking shit on social media and people's respect or disrespect, like
natural
all these kind of
things that are completely out of our control.
Yeah, these are all out of our control. So Stoicism talks a lot about focusing on what you can control, and it's mainly just focusing on being a good person and you know, living a good life, and
this can all be pulled back to graph too. And anyone listening is artists, just in general. So there's one side of it that I'll start trying to like base it on my experience as far as, so here's a couple different things about this whole theory that I've found interesting. Because on one hand, I look at it like, had I even thought about, you know, looking at things this way before, perhaps I would still have certain things in my life that I really want to have in my life. Then on the other hand, I would look at it in the way from what I understand, is that, well, it's because of those things that had happened that you are now able to be aware of what you need to do, right? And you're aware of what you need to pull the covers off in that sense. And like you said, you know, there's certain things, graph within your crew, within your abilities at this moment, within your financial situation, which all these things are geared towards your career as a writer or your hobby or whatever you want to consider this. But there are certain things that the more we try to control, ultimately we're actually really pushing that shit away from us even further and further out of reach, in my experience. The more that I tried to have a grasp on something and think that I was in full control over the outcome and how this person or this thing was going to react to me and how they should and my expectation, this shit fucking leads to resentments, and then it's even further out of your fucking control, and then you start losing your whole grip on why you're doing the shit in the first place. So, you know, in my experience, the best thing that I have pulled from this, which is what you just sparked this with, which is what little control we have over certain things. And not so much to focus on all the things we don't have control over, because that list is long as shit. It's I believe, more of a benefit to gear all your attention towards the things you do have control over, which is the basics. That what's right in front of you at this very moment, the way you take care of yourself and the way you respond to whatever you're up against right now.
There's a few things that I've come across that things that you think you have control over, but you actually don't. It's like one of them in Stoicism, they say you don't really have control over your body, and you can work out, you can eat healthy, and you can do all this kind of stuff, but you can still catch a virus and it could decimate all of that shit, or you could get a tumor or something like that. So I mean, like, it's not saying to not take care of yourself and not that's what's within your control is to do those things, but like you really don't have control over what's going to happen. And the other thing that's pretty interesting about it is if you're able to follow this, and the thing is too is it's not something that you're ever going to, I think people have this misunderstanding about education that like once you learn it, then you know it, and then that's it. Like if people think, oh, you went to college and you learned how to do this, then 30 years later, that knowledge is going to keep carrying you. But it's like, it's an ongoing.
Yeah.
If you think that once you're done with your education, then your learning is over, then you're really doing yourself a disservice. So this is especially true with something like this, because you're always going to be learning this stuff, and you're always going to be trying to reapply it. But the point I was trying to make in this long-winded fucking statement was you can learn what it is, and it's kind of hard for me to explain. So I mean, I think we'll recommend some things you can look at also, but hopefully it becomes a little clearer why we're talking about it as we go. But you're always going to be a student of it, so you're always going to find moments where you're tested and you can learn from it. And like even today, driving here, and like all the lanes are closed and I'm behind, cars, and I'm stressed out because like my people are already at the shop and I'm supposed to be here, and I'm the leader and I'm not leading a good example, and all these things are coming into my mind. But it's like I go back to the Stoic philosophy, and I'm like, the past is gone, the future is unknown. All you have is this one moment right now. And so I'm like, well, why am I going to stress? Just get to the shop and get started. Stressing about this moment right now is not doing anything. It's not going to get me there faster, and it's not going to change the fact that I should have left 20 minutes earlier. None of that's in my control anymore. So like I was able to just, it took a minute because like I had the realization.
Yeah.
But then after a couple of minutes, I was like, fuck it,
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got here, I just got down to business, and it's fine.
The way we choose our words, I feel, is really important also. Like, because when you say fuck it, you didn't mean like fuck it hedoesn't matter. You just mean like that particular thing is not affecting like the overall outcome, Right. Because when I used to say just those words, you'll hear people say, I got a case of the fuck it. And once that comes on, then a lot of things can kind of fall through. And kind of in my life, in the things that I'm doing today, if I catch a case of the fuck it could be fucking deadly for me.
Yeah.
It starts with one little thing and then to the next, and then fuck it.
Yeah.
That's all bad. So I believe what you meant when you said fuck it was like those petty things really have no effect over the overall picture here. I need to take a breath and like realize, and that's beautiful.
The stressful feelings, like put them out.
Yeah, put them out.
Unnecessary.
Absolutely right. Because like look at this a few different ways, right? It's like, all right, cool. So this is one thing I'll work on a little bit more tomorrow. As long as I'm like improving somehow every single day, a little bit, it's all good. Was I doing something at the pad that was productive and like towards the same ultimate goal, like just to get myself prepared to do this? Yeah. Oh, okay. So it was like completely rational that I am a little bit behind right now. At least it was all in service of this and that. Of course, we don't think that shit right off the bat. Well, again, we're like conditioned to feel a certain way because we've lived a certain way fucking our entire lives. So yeah, my initial reaction is going to be to want to jump and then think about it. Wait, hold up. I was doing that on the way here as well. The way people fucking drive, the way people act, and I was one of them not too long ago as well. I understand the madness. You don't think about the person behind you. You're not thinking about. I was in a very self-seeking, selfish fucking state of mind for a very, very long time. But now I'm more aware of it in myself and in other people, and I take a breath and I'm like, oh yeah, that was just me fucking months ago. It wasn't even that long ago that I was acting that way. But again, what I'm trying to say is like initially, like, or the first reaction that comes to my mind is like throwing up my fucking finger, which is like, how ridiculous is that anyway? Putting a finger in the air, like what is that even supposed to do? Yes. Or fucking whatever the initial reaction is because I'm conditioned to try to let them know, you know, fucking whatever it is. I'm getting off track here.
No, but this is good though.
Yeah,
because
but see, that's just it. It's we're so used to and so conditioned. But we talked about this on the last or the one before that. What's the most powerful part of this entire section, whatever the fuck you want to call this, is the fact that you're able to catch it. You're able to be aware of it. Whether this is the practice you were learning this week or it was one previous, whatever the case is, you're able to like stop yourself like, oh shit, that's right. That was how I was like acting and thinking before, and take a breath and like, let's look at this shit again. Like, I want to try my best to like bring this back to graph every single time, but I think.
I mean, we can relate it to graph like in a bunch of different ways, and you know the thing is like if people are just tuning in and this is like their first episode, you should probably look at episode 10. The thing is like, understand that like everything we're trying to do is because this is information that we've come across, and all of the whole podcast, every single episode that we've done, it's based on either realizations that we've come to that have made dramatic improvements in our lives, or it's information that we've come across that have sparked like big changes and improvements in the way that we carry ourselves, the way that we live our lives, the way that we treat other people. So that's why we're doing this, and we're doing this for the graph culture. So we're going to relate it to graph every time, but like, we don't have to be like, and how this relates to graffiti is X, Y, Z. It's sort of like, if this may not be the show for you, if that's what, I don't know, maybe not. The thing is like,
got to read between the lines. I mean,
to a certain degree. I mean, we will come back to specific graffiti stuff, but like, let's just say right now, okay, any social issues that are happening in graffiti, a lot of times it's stuff that affects you in a way that is not really, it's really not rational if you think about it. And so that's what's so great about Stoicism, because it takes out things like ego. It takes things out like being upset at people because of something they did or something that they said. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about this book, and I'm not even done with it. It's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and if you're going to read this, the thing about this book is it's written by Marcus Aurelius, and he was a Roman emperor in like fucking, I don't know, like 160. So it's a really long fucking time ago. And so there's a lot of translations, and some of them, unless you're like well versed on like English from back then, like the shit makes no fucking sense to me. So I've tried to read it and I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? Look for the Gregory Hayes, Hays translation. And in this book, there's a whole section that talks about Marcus Aurelius's life. If you just want to read the meditations part, you can skip to that. And it's really not that long, but it's crazy. The cool thing about it is he didn't write this to be published. Like, he actually wanted it to be destroyed after he died so that nobody could read it. It's basically his personal thoughts.
Yeah, his journal.
And so what's so awesome about this, and we just watched a lecture on this yesterday, you have to put in perspective that this guy was the fucking most powerful person in their known world. So like, if you think about way back then, their world is much smaller than the entire globe, because they don't They don't have airplanes or trains or anything like that. So it's not like they're shooting off to China and hanging out with, So he's the most powerful person. Let's just say he's the most powerful person in the world. He's the Roman emperor. He can literally have
anything and anyone he wants.
Right.
Basically.
He can have all the money he wants. He can take everybody's money. He can have sex with anybody he wants. No repercussions. He could literally do anything he wants. Mm-hmm. Yet he follows this Stoic path, and it's about being a good person, treating people right.
Yeah.
So if somebody like a fucking Roman emperor back then can not succumb to any of these temptations and live like a really good life of virtue and all that shit, then surely people like you and me that don't have nearly those kind of temptations can apply this kind of thing to our lives and pretty much anybody else. Can you imagine like if everybody in the graph culture followed this Stoic path and it was like just trying to be the best person that they could, trying not to be affected by ego and trying not to be affected by
fame and all that.
Fame and none of that stuff matters. Everything, all that really matters is like that you're doing the right thing and you're,
for the right reason.
Yeah. So like we wouldn't have really any social issues. I guess we could have some, but for the most part, everything would be resolved so much easier,
It's tricky. Because fame and being known, and that ego of we're better than you is like everything that this was built on when I was younger. So I can understand how if I were to hear somebody talk about it just for the first time, again, I believe that I would expect more people to initially be like, what the fuck, laugh, talk shit, and then kind of take it in, than the majority to be like, yeah, like from the very jump.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I for myself at a younger age, the first time I would have heard this, I don't know. You know what? How can I possibly predict that?
Well,
but
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, let's say we're not saying to take that whole thing out, but like, what if you still had the fame part of graffiti, but not the ego part? Like, you could,
like, you wanted your work and your name to be known, like you want your company to grow and be successful.
Right.
But
if you just like focused on being a good graffiti writer and in terms of like the standard stuff, whatever your choice is, what if it's trains? Like you focus on getting, whatever it is, fucking whole cars, like whatever that is. But if you took that ego part out of it and just did it, all of that stuff would come, the fame and all that shit. But you don't have to turn into an asshole over it. So like you see people that maybe they're humble when they're starting out, and then all of a sudden like some fame starts coming in, and then they start treating people like shit that were in the same place they were when they started. And part of me can understand that in terms of the more you get exposed to people, the more jaded you can become, and the more you could start being like, I'm just fucking sick of these people. And that's when you start being like, God, fuck toys, get these motherfuckers out of here.
Which we see a lot in it, and it's such a, obviously we're not fans of that. Let me just say that much. What you're saying to me makes me come back every single time to the foundation and why am I doing this in the first place? Why is it? What is it that happened to me to want to inspire and to motivate this great change? If I feel myself falling off track, if I feel myself, like if you were talking about fame and how somebody can like change from at first it wasn't a big thing, and then slowly once they gain that fame, now all of a sudden they got a fucking big head and fuck these fools and this and that, and don't you know who I think I am and all that, okay? So like if your foundation itself was not about that, like that will come just because you keep doing the right thing and constantly, and you're consistent, and your work is getting better, and you're meeting more people, and you're traveling, and all those things. So it's almost inevitable that's going to come with it at some point. Though if that's not your main goal, and that never was, and you can even see that happening at some point in the future, but you keep going back to the foundation, like, why did I even want to do this in the first place? Like, what got me hyped? What was that first thing that I saw that sparked this love for me, for graph, for lettering, for colors, for style, for trains, for whatever the fuck? And you stay with that. So, okay, so you see where I'm going with the graffiti, right? But for me, if I was to go back to like what inspired great change in my life within this past year, it was, I don't even have to get specific, but that thing that inspired that great change inside of me, if I ever find myself fading or kind of falling off the track or feeling as if that motivation is not as loud as it was before, I go back to that, and I have people in my corner to remind me of that, just as we are right now trying to be that voice for those who maybe don't have something to hear, right? But I keep going back to that foundation of like, what is it that inspired that great change? And like, that's why I'm doing this every day. That's what keeps those temptations, those things, those other people at bay. That's what keeps me like, you know what, fuck that. I see what my mission here is and the reason I did this in the first place. Let's say it was I had to lose something great in my life in order to be aware of certain things and to move forward and to, you know, grow into the best version of my fucking self. Every single time that I feel complacent or any of those things, I go back to that again and I relive that day. Not in a way where it like brings me down, but I relive that day of like, oh yeah, that's why I was doing this. And this shit was not in vain. And this shit means more to me than that person probably even knows or that I even realized it did. And I can apply that to graph as well. And why any kind of like notoriety or any kind of fucking never... I can see how you can channel that in such a positive way with graph. Like some younger kids look up to you and they want you to sign their book. Don't treat them like fucking toys, like $10 a signature or whatever. And I know we've talked about this before. Like if that's your hustle, okay, man, fucking hustle. Do your thing. But that's not what I would choose to do. I would look at it like, hell yeah, these kids are inspired one way or another. Let's show them. There's plenty of people out there that cats will meet and be like, fuck, I wish I never met that dude. Like I've totally looked up to him until I finally actually met him. So there's plenty of them out there. So yeah. why not be the one that's doing just the opposite? Like, you know, fuck signing your book. How about we just go paint together right now? Let's go. Or like whatever it is, you know. But what I'm trying to say is if you can continue to go back to that foundation, the reason why you're doing this in the first place, and really try to attempt to make that your main foundation is the word, but there's something else I want to go with. Just keep going back to that reason why, and I believe that's a very simplified example of what he would apply to everything he did in his life when, I mean, all the temptations he had, right? All the things he had to deal with on a daily basis, all the people that are coming to him for advice and trying for direction and all these things. You see all this madness, the greed and the lust and the envy and all the fucking things coming at him, but he always kept this cool, calm and collected like approach to everything and didn't let that fame kind of like consume him in a sense of how he treated other people and how he treated his life. I know that was long-winded as well, but...
You talked about the why. I'm sure that relates to Stoicism. I haven't read anything specific about that, but like if your why is just for the fame and that's the only reason you're doing it, then that's probably an issue on its own. Mm-hmm. If your why is that you're really passionate about this kind of art or whatever it is, like you like the thing about graffiti is like it's a really interesting art movement that I've never seen anywhere else. So you have like, you could say, you know, all these other art movements have like a culture within them and all that stuff, but I don't know that there's anything quite like graffiti that has all the different kind of like ins and outs and things that we have. So if you're passionate about the culture, that's a better why than the fame. So like another thing I wanted to talk about that you had mentioned is like, if everybody was so self-aware, it would be a lot easier because you have to put yourself also, let's say you're like one of the most well-known writers and you go to an art show or a graph show, right? And everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows you're there. And I've seen this happen to people. You're just there. You want to go and enjoy yourself at the show. But every person that you come across wants you to sign their book. Mm-hmm. So there's going to come a time where you're like, I didn't really come here just to sign books. So you may have to turn people away. So like as the person trying to get the other person, like we all need to be self-aware. So it's not just up to the writer that's this quote king to be like, yeah, I'm humble, so I'm going to sign everybody's black books. Like he didn't go there just to sign 250 black books. Like, so it's up to both of us. Like it's not, and I've heard these fucking, you know, I've heard these fucking busybody gossip fucking bullshits where they're like, oh, you know, so-and-so's at the art show and he wouldn't sign so-and-so's book. And it's like, you're only telling me one part of the equation.
Right.
Was there fucking 200 kids in a line? I've seen this happen. And there's somebody there and he's just fucking book after book. And then people are talking shit. Oh, he just fucking did a quick tag. And it's like, dude, there's like 30 people in line. Like, let's all be a little more self-aware. Like that person didn't go, I'm going to go to the art show just to sign books and not talk to any of my friends and not look at the art show.
Be a book signing. Otherwise.
Yeah. It's like, so there's two sides to it. Sure. And so this whole thing with Stoicism, if you are really fucking locked in on that, then you'll have that kind of self-awareness to where you'll see things from both sides. Because you always hear these stories that you're like, fuck, dude, I'm only getting the worst part of what you're saying, your perspective, and you're twisting the narrative in such a way to where you're kind of still telling the truth. Like, yeah, he didn't sign the book, but you didn't tell me everything. So like, I think Stoicism can help. And I actually started rambling. I'm like looking at the fucking thing to see how long I'm talking for. Like, but I don't know. I think it's important.
That's a good point.
You know, it's important to look at, we all need to be aware of that, you know?
I love that balance that you bring because that's the thing. When I mentioned something like that, like I'd rather be the guy like taking the time to make a whatever, do whatever, then fuck you guys and you're wasting my time. However, you got to see both sides of just any situation. Like we've talked about this before too. You never know what the next guy's going through when you're approaching them or when you're getting at him. And meaning like he might need a night to just vent and just stare at fucking art and just be there with his boys. And he's not barely even talking to his crew. He's just there with them, just chilling, whatever it is. But you're right. It's having that kind of perspective over. We're all just human beings doing the best we can at that very moment. Like, stop putting so much on it. Stop having such high expectations, and expectations lead to resentments, right? You like expect this person should be a certain way. You expect this situation should turn out, which is ultimately attaching yourself to the outcome, which is playing God in that sense. Like, I'm the director, I'm the conductor. This is how it should go. This is where he should be, she should be, they should react. They should, you know, and that all leads to fucking madness. Having the perception of shit, all I can do is control the way I respond right now.
Right. So if he said, no, I don't want to sign your black book.
Yeah.
What are you going to, like, does that lead to you getting all pissed off and then it ruins your night and you go on social media and you talk shit and go, oh, fucking, here he goes. Jimmy Jimbo 227 didn't want to sign my fucking book. He's a fucking, just you know, I looked up to him my whole life and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know, that's the other cool thing about Marcus Aurelius, that he, since he was the emperor, he had to deal with all these other people. And it was like, he would go into it knowing, like, in our terms, like, a lot of these people are fucking pieces of shit and they're fucking backstabbers and they're looking out for themselves and all this stuff. But like, my understanding is that he went into it saying like, you know, I can't let that affect me negatively. So it's like you go into any situation, this whole thing like, oh, never meet your heroes and all this kind of stuff. Like, I can understand that when you get disappointed when you meet somebody, but if you're coming at it in a way that's very, very rational, then it shouldn't affect you that much. You know, it shouldn't affect you at all. But we're humans. It's like hard for us to completely not be affected by it. But that is in itself is a problem if you think about if that actually affects you, because you're allowing somebody else to have that power over you even if you're, that's my favorite artist and he told me to fuck myself. It's like, hey, whatever. I still like his art, like, or her art, whatever, like I still, it doesn't mean I can't look at these cool pictures on Instagram just because he was a dick to me at that one time. And then at the same time, maybe that person isn't actually a dick and he's just had the worst day ever. And that happens to me all the time. Like, I'm generally not an asshole to people, but like if I'm in a super bad mood, which is like what Stoicism is helping me not be in a bad mood, because being in a bad mood is exactly not a Stoic thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, you don't let these outside things affect you. So like, I'm hoping that the more that I learn and continue to read and explore all of this information, obviously I'll continue to be a student of it, but I'm hoping that it'll become second nature to when some kind of outside stimulus comes in that would put me in a bad mood. And I see it all the time, and I recognize it, that where I see certain things happening and I'm be like, oh, that's something that I totally would have taken personally a couple years ago, and identifying that how stupid that would have been, because I'm like not doing it now, and I'm thinking it's got nothing to do with me at all. I don't know if
that's exactly something that I've been learning every day. That self-seeking, selfish nature of it's about me. It's all about me. It's all for me. Me. And that's just it. It's like you never know what else you just dealt with a second before that. Let the dude take a breath. Let her take a breath. Take a fucking breath of your own. Like that moment between, what is it, the stimulus and the response, that breath. Yeah. I mean, it's life-changing. It's a matter of literally changing everything around you in your life. And, I contradict myself, or I'm just learning as we're talking about it now, but the mere fact that I understood that whole never meet your heroes thing, you're absolutely right. Because if you don't put that emphasis or that expectation on that person, well, fuck, I wish I never would have met that dude because I thought it was this. Well, whatever. Like, you shouldn't have had that expectation and that thought that was that. And like you said, and how would that even affect you even if it wasn't what you thought?
Right. Even just because he's an asshole, it doesn't have any effect on your life.
Right. Like, I would hope this dude's cool. I love his shit. But if he's not, okay. That's the way to go at it. So when you get at him and say, he isn't what you thought he was, and you just, okay. Either way, it's still okay. It's whatever.
Right, exactly.
Or give him a fucking minute to breathe too, because it could be like you said, like I'm a nice guy, I'm a good person, but if you catch me at when something just cracked like seconds before, I might not be as pleasant to deal with. Just give me a minute to breathe. It could be the difference between a signature and a fucking left hook or whatever it is, but not to that extent. But you know what I'm saying? What you mean. Yeah, man. So. Yeah.
It just happened to me the other day. We have our place all boarded up because there's potential issues happening, and a customer came, and I'm not going to get into all of it, but I was getting frustrated, just the whole thing, like going all the way around and bringing the change and doing all this kind of stuff. So like, by the time like I didn't take the time to be like, chill the fuck out, man. Mm-hmm. It's not that serious. Just do the thing.
Like telling yourself that.
Telling me that. Yeah, just taking that moment, And it wasn't even anything to be frustrated about. It was just, I was out doing something else, and one thing led to another, and my brain's like, I don't want to deal with this right now. So then I get out there and, I hand the customer the thing and give him his change. And he's like, oh, hey, your bus, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he introduces himself. And I wasn't an asshole to him, but at the same time, I wasn't the way that I would normally be.
Like receptive to.
Yeah, normally I'd be, oh, what's up, man? Like, What do you write? And I would be, but I didn't do that. I was nice, I hope. Gave him a pound and told him thanks and everything. But like, as I walked away, I was like, I didn't handle that the way that I normally would like to. Mm. So I don't know. Maybe I changed that person's perception of me right then. Or maybe not. I don't know. But that's another thing with the Stoicism. It's like...
That's the other side of it's out of your control.
It's already gone. That moment is gone.
Sure.
And so worrying about that,
Right.
it's not going to do me any good.
Right.
And, it is what it is, but
So it's attached to a couple things there, right? So if you flip it like that, imagine if that was you were the customer, right? You would hope that you, like going to try to get a signature from somebody you respected, that you would look at it like, either way, if he's cool, if he's not, I still like him. I still like his work. It's cool. And if the dude's not like that, that's out of your control completely.
that's cool too.
Yeah.
It's for both people.
For both people.
Yeah.
Because what's the best thing that can come out of that? Oh, now he's not my fan. Now I have less fame. So then take it to that extent. So what's the deal if I do have fame? Is that a currency I can fucking use? Like respect. Like,
right.
Does that really fucking matter? Sure, the notoriety may have gotten me in this position as far as my career is concerned, but when it really comes down to it, like, is that really what's fucking important here? What am I really doing for myself and everybody else at this point? I don't know. I guess it depends on what step you're at on your journey. I'm not saying that those things can't benefit a situation, because obviously that's why they have celebrity speakers and people promoting and things of that nature, is because that name itself and the reputation they've built, it helps boost whatever that punch is for that thing. I'm not discounting that. I get that. But there's a balance to that as well. There's a way where that can go into a very tacky kind of direction, and in a way where it's used in a positive light. You got a positive celebrity, promoting a dog rescue or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Well, that can even go back to the why, the original why. And I do a lot of reading about a lot of different things. And one is to build business, like, and money and all that stuff. And I just want to clarify, I'm not hating on it, but I'm not like this paper chaser kind of money type of person. I do want to achieve a certain level of success, honestly, because I want to fucking rescue a lot of dogs, and I want to have as much money as I can to do that. Yeah, that's my why. Obviously I also want to create opportunities for my team, you guys, everybody that's on the team at Machine. I want to create all of this thing. It's
he's not fucking around either. He has enough dogs right now to pull a sled.
Yeah,
so far.
And it's not even nearly enough. I'm gonna fucking save all the dogs.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, and what Cub is saying is, and what he said before, it's the why. Like, if you have a bigger why, and this is something I learned in another business book or something, I can't remember, but it was like, let's say you're like, I want to make $1 billion. Mm-hmm. Okay. If that's your why, it's going to be harder for you to achieve that, unless you're like, I want to make $1 billion because I want to save all these starving people in some country or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If it's a bigger why and it's bigger than you, if it's bigger in general, then, I mean, if the why is like, I want to make $1 billion and have like a fleet of Lambos, and I can't relate because I don't see a lot of value in that, but I'm sure there are people, obviously, that buy yachts and do all this champagne and all this stuff. Like, that why might be big enough for some people. I personally don't see that. The more money that I have, probably the more bummy I'll end up looking. It's like, I'll drive a van. Like, I'll be a fucking billionaire with a van, like fucking whatever, man.
Yes, sir.
Going to Home Depot and shit.
Nice.
But what was I talking about?
Just I can relate to you 100%. There's very little things I desire at this moment in my life that money can buy. The things that I want by my side, the things that I want to pursue, has no monetary value. I mean, they're priceless, but it's not a monetary value.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know why we got into money.
That's a beautiful feeling, too. I'm not saying that obviously we need to have a certain amount of whatever to survive. Though if your fucking intentions are righteous, if you have a pure intention in what you're doing and your why is fucking beautiful in that sense, I don't know. And I know, you know what, I really don't give a fuck if people don't like the way that sounds, because I do believe that. I believe if you really believe that, if you really have that faith in what the fuck you're doing and your step, and your intentions are pure in that sense, and that you are living in integrity. And again, I'm not saying I've done this my whole life. This is what I understand today, and this is what I believe in. Things will line up, and in a way that you never fucking saw coming. It may touch on that path that you're gearing towards, but it's going to be even brighter than you ever fucking expected. And and shit is going to happen. This whole lesson that we're promoting here, in this whole way of life, a lot of people will say, I look forward to being tested to see if I'm actually applying this to my life, and in which ways, and not just traffic on the way to work, like in the real deal shit that happens. Like this week, as a matter of fact, like I lost somebody really close to me, and these things happened, and they're going to continue to happen. And I know silver lining is a very, commercial kind of way to say it, but that's a very understandable and very universal way to kind of state it. How am I going to honor this person? How am I going to show that their life and their relationship with me and our bond was not in vain, and all these things that come with it, right? There was another example with that. Things that even open me up to this way of thinking of things. And the other kind of program I'm running in my life is because of some devastating shit that I absolutely could have taken the other fucking direction. We all can. I don't even know where I started with that.
Well, I think it's at least something worth mentioning that the Stoic philosophy teaches you to not fear anything out of your control. So like something like death is happening to all of us. We're all going to die. We don't know when, we don't know how. Everybody's going to die. So there's no point in fearing it. So like that doesn't directly relate to like losing a loved one, because that sucks, but at the same time it's like it's inevitable. So it's kind of like it's a process of life. And that's the other thing about the Stoic philosophy. It's living in accordance to nature. So in nature death is part of it. And it's not so much nature like going and run around in the wilderness and stuff. Right. I mean, it could be, but they're saying more like how things naturally occur. So tragedy is going to happen, and they believe that the cosmos has an order, and everything that happens is part of all of that shit. And like one of the things that I just read, I think this morning from Meditations, was they were saying that everything is good, and it's hard to swallow. So like if you think like, fuck, dude, like my friend just died. Yeah. How is that good? Right. Like I don't know how to get my head around that. And you're supposed to love everything that happens. And that's the one part about Stoicism that I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'll ever get to that. But let's say you could get to the point where anything that happens is just part of the universal fucking order of things. And this is just, nothing is chance. You know what I mean? Like the fates they talk about. Yeah. So it's kind of like, imagine if you could, you wouldn't be this like callous, be like, oh, my mom died, fuck it, whatever. Right. It's not like that. It's just sort of like getting this like strong understanding that that's just part of the universal order, or it's part of nature. It's, and you accept it, and you're able to accept it. But then another thing that you had talked about is like to try to find the quote silver lining. And it's kind of like, it could even come down to something as small as like, it's a chance for you to build up resilience and build up this mental toughness, when tragedies happen. Like, so let's say my shop got decimated in a riot or something, there's nothing like good about that. But at the same time, it would be a really great test. Not don't fucking riot my place, please. It would suck. But at the same time, like imagine how if I were to be like, look, this happened, what's the move forward? Yeah. And take a really fucking stoic approach to it, the amount of mental toughness and strength that I would gain from that would be very valuable.
Extremely. If I understand correctly, that's exactly one of the main topics or kind of points they focus on, which is just that. And they put a lot of emphasis on meditating on those things happening and how you would react to it. So you do build up that resilience in that sense.
Yeah,
so,
you build it up like before it even happens.
Yeah. You project in your head, well, these, for example, losing people that you love, right? Things like that. And I'm not sitting here speaking on this from experience, because at this moment I can only hope and pray that I'll act a certain way when those kind of things happen, though I'll never really know until it does. So I'm not discounting that either for those who have gone through this and how absolutely tragic and difficult that is. What I do understand from this is when you build up that resilience, when you really practice like that already happening, and you kind of project that, knowing that that's inevitable, just a matter of when and how and all those things, and how you will react to that, and where you're going to find like I guess silver lining is the best way to go back to it, right? Where are you going to find the lesson or the strategy and the benefit in how you're going to handle that situation, and how is that going to strengthen you as a person into the best version of yourself? So not only do you build that up, and it's not future tripping and really projecting this tragic day again and again and again, and then becoming anxiety and stress. That's not what we're saying. It's knowing that these things could and very well will happen at some point, and how you're going to react to it, and how you can be that rock for all these other things that are happening. Because if you can build that up, perhaps, again, I'm just speculating, perhaps all these other petty things in life that we take too seriously won't be so, and we can handle that in a better way. Taking that even further, if you take on that kind of mentality and you really start understanding and you're aware of that being a very strong thing to focus on, then your current situation, the fact that those people are still with you, perhaps you don't take that for granted as much as you might be. And you really realize how fortunate you are to have those relationships and have these opportunities to show up, to be present, to do these things. So not only are you fucking protecting yourself, and you're kind of building that fortress for the future of like what could be or it will be, but you're absolutely in the fucking moment, like really taking it in for what it is right now.
Yeah.
So I see a win-win in that sense, you know?
That's another thing they talk about. Like you have this, and I think I just read a passage in Meditations this morning that he was talking about how the past is already gone and the future is unknown. And what you have is like this such a small amount of time. Like every word that we say is pretty much the only moment that we really exist, because the word that we said before that is already gone. And the next word is unknown, essentially. Like, we don't know, this building could explode right after I say this, you know, like, so you really have, it's crazy to think about. Like you really have just this like moment in time where you're actually existing. And then he also mentioned like the place on the earth, like the place that we're occupying right now is such a tiny part of the earth. And then when you think about like how small the earth is in the universe, like it could be scary to think of it on that level, but then at the same time, it could be kind of cool, because you're like, you know, why am I going to trip on somebody calling me a toy? Like, dude, it's like,
right.
All I have is this moment and this place. That's all I have. And like, I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. Like when we talked about living small, like we really mean like living fucking small.
Yeah.
Like you think about those kind of enormous kind of like the example you just gave. Enormous isn't even the right word for it. It's mind blowing to even think of that being a fact. Okay, so then you shrink down to like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and like type of thought of like, he called me a toy, or he didn't like my picture. Like what?
Yeah.
The fuck.
There's
like
so
how
much
small.
Yeah.
Of
Get
a
the fuck
like
out of here with that.
Like really, like if you think of like what a human being's potential is in life, and like what they can actually do and reach, and how they can inspire, and how they can influence, and all those things, like. I talk about this as if I've known this forever, but I was absolutely that fucking person.
Oh, yeah.
Not long ago at all. A year ago today, at this very moment, I was doing the same thing. I was tripping on a picture not being liked. I was tripping on thinking I had control over a person, over a situation. I was thinking that I was literally the reason for it. It was all about me, like all these things that we've just talked about. So you know what is also very fucking cool is not only does this sound like a deep way of thinking about life and about things, but it's a very easy thing to adopt. It's a very simple, not easy. It's a very simple philosophy. It's a very simple rule of thumb in just the way you looked at things. Because once you actually start absorbing it And then you apply it to the little fucking things, driving to work. You realize how this could actually work with fucking everything.
Everything.
Like we were talking about. Like, yeah, we can talk about an episode of this that relates to graph. And once you start really, if you did take this all the way through the episode and you really think about it, it's like, you're absolutely right. This does apply to fucking everything I do. We've talked about this episodes ago. Like, you get to a spot. You just did the whole mission. You had to park in fucking wherever the fuck. You had to wait for however many cars to pass at the exact right time just to cross this one spot because you did it all right. You had to get over 3 fences, fucking 5 rooftops, whatever the fuck it took you to get there. You got in a fight with a couple people living under the bridge on your way out there. You finally get to the spot and someone already had it. And you're like, fuck. And you don't want to cap them. You don't want to go over this. You don't want to. So how do you use this situation to your advantage? Instead of getting mad, instead of starting some shit with the person who's there, think about how this situation can now benefit you by, all right, well, and you know what? Let's hit that part that we never thought of. Maybe we should hit one of those rooftops on our way in. Maybe we should just go higher. Whatever it is, there's always something that can be a benefit to this particular situation. Stop living so small or start thinking so small about that little spot, you know?
You know what's cool about that is if you think about that before you get to that point. So if you're like, you go through all that shit and then you find that disappointment and then you go back in retrospect and you're like, all right, what lesson did I learn? There's a cool thing that if you're already thinking on that level, like, and I've found myself doing this from time to time, like how I write these thank you notes for every order. And like, you've seen the amount of orders that are coming in.
Yeah.
So like, sometimes I'll just be like, I got to write 50 of these things. And then tomorrow I got to fucking write 50 more.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that. And I'm thinking like, what am I gaining from this?
Penmanship and
a
lot of different
No,
things.
that's true. And so where I was thinking about it before, I was like, fuck. You know, I know this is important because it's something that I've decided that I'm going to do for the business. But then when it comes into practice, you know, one way to think of it is like, I'm spending all this time, like I could be doing this, I could be doing that, like blah, 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 whatever it is. Or you could be like, okay, I've made the decision to do this. What can I gain out of it? I'm writing the same few words every time. I'm signing my name. And so eventually I was like, well, why don't I just start getting better at this?
Yeah.
And I swear, dude, if you look at the first one that I wrote versus the one now, like I can see it. I don't know if other people can.
I'm sure.
They look so much better now because I took that. I was like, this is my moment in time that I'm choosing to spend my time doing this. So I'm going to get the most out of it. So I'm like drawing the H a little different, you know, it's still like doing it efficiently because I'm not going to spend 4 hours writing 50 of these all perfect, but I'm trying to find ways that I can do them really fast and make them look really nice.
Yeah.
And like maybe if I do the top of my B something and my signature's looking better. So even down to like little things, if you're using that sort of positive outlook on, like, let's say you're climbing across all those rooftops and you're projecting ahead and thinking, I hope when I get to that spot, it's not already taken. But as you're climbing, you're like, oh, cool, I'm getting a good shoulder workout and like, you know, and I'm learning how to do this and like, you know, whatever it is, like, you know, if you're thinking about that ahead of time, you're going to get even more out of it. Adopting. I don't know how, I mean, I feel like almost everything that's positive, like as far as mindset, can be related to Stoicism in some way or another.
No matter what. That's another thing that I understood was you do the very fucking best job you can at anything you're in front of at that very moment.
Because that's all you have.
That's all you have.
Is that sliver of time. It's so crazy.
Yeah, and it goes back to you appreciating yourself. It goes back to your self-worth and your love for yourself. Another thing they talked about was, isn't it interesting how we can be so concerned with what somebody else likes, doesn't like, says or doesn't say about ourselves and how they feel about us, but the way we treat ourselves at times isn't even held to that same level.
Right.
But we're so fucking jacked up over how they see me or how they talk. Well, how do you talk to yourself? How do you treat yourself? Do you respect yourself in that sense where you take your life and every moment that's in it that serious, where fuck, all I have is today. And stop putting shit off till tomorrow, which I also did. I was also king procrastinator. Tomorrow. You hear it all the time. Tomorrow's not promised. But the fact of the matter is it's not. Why, how can you even possibly expect to achieve the things that you're born to do if you think you're going to keep putting them off? Like this very fucking moment right now. There's another thing they touch on, like how they use him as an example of not being able to stay, under the sheets. Like the moment he's up, he's human, he gets shit done, he gets it going. Like people would look at him like, this is like godlike, how this dude is like achieving all these things, and he's there for all these people, and he's on top of his fucking game, and he has this positive attitude because he doesn't fuck around. He doesn't have a lot of fuck time, so to speak. But like you were saying, appreciating every single moment and obstacle in front of you for what it is. Like the obstacle is the way. Like the other, title of the other thing we were looking at. That's just it. That whole situation, that whole obstacle could very well be exactly the path that you're looking for, not the path of least resistance. Like, no, I don't take that to be a positive outlook on anything either. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I understand what somebody is trying to get across by saying that. However, I feel like that's a very moderate, a very, what's the word? When people settle for mediocrity, that's a very mediocrity type of mentality. The path of least resistance. No, that's what fucking everybody's walking on. Fuck that. Like challenge yourself. Go for the obstacle, because that's probably exactly what the fuck you need to do or look at or whatever the fuck in the first place. In my experience, anything that I've wanted to, anything that I was hesitant, anything I wanted to neglect, anything that I didn't want to hear was exactly that thing that I needed to do, that I needed to hear, that I needed to work on most. Every single time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a pretty good.
I think it was.
So why don't we wrap it up with a couple of recommendations? Either read, if you're not a reader, I highly suggest just getting an audiobook and just paying attention, because you're going to get the knowledge. There's something to be said about reading. Reading is a skill. I try to do my best to read every day, but I also listen to a shit ton of audiobooks. So if you want to listen to some modern writers, there's a guy named Ryan Holiday. He wrote 2 books that I would definitely recommend. The audiobooks are really good. You can even play audiobooks at like 2 times the speed once you get used to the voice going so fast. The human brain can absorb that shit. So it's really, you don't even have to commit to that much time.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Obstacle is the Way is a really great book. And it's a really great book if you're really just wanting to get the idea. It's not going to go into like the ins and outs of Stoicism, but it's a book that really digs into like some of the sort of mindsets of Stoicism. He also wrote another book called Ego is the Enemy. I think fucking every graph writer should read this book or listen to it. It's just such a rational way at looking at the issues that your ego can cause you. And he relates all of this shit to like people that were super successful in business and people that were totally just fell apart, and like people that fucked their whole lives off and because they didn't have their ego in check. And like, we probably should have recommended this book on the ego episode, but I hadn't actually finished it by the time.
Better late than never.
Yeah. And then as you start to dive into this, there's also podcasts. There's a podcast called Stoicism on Fire. There's another one called, I think, Good Fortune. You're going to hear references to Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. So I can't recommend it like as if I've fucking read it, because I'm not even done with it yet. But like, you should read it. I'm going to read it. It's
I'd like to.
But the look for the Gregory Hayes translation, because it's written in like fucking the kind of English that we normally speak.
Art thou graffiti machine?
Yeah. It's like, I tried so hard. I was like, what the fuck? I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But anyway.
Yeah.
So there's no audio version of that one, but it's not a hard read, I don't know. It's worth it.
Nice.
So I guess that's it.
Yeah. If you're on your way out, you're zipping up your fucking your backpack right now. You're picking out your tips and your colors. Take your time and do it well. Enjoy your project. Take the time and if you're not already applying this to every set you do, which a lot of you are, there's so much beautiful fucking work out there. But perhaps you have not applied this to what you do. Take that time. Whatever. It's just take time and appreciate that moment for what it is if you're not already doing so. I just strongly believe it's only going to make all that we do as a culture that much smoother and keep cats, with the positive fucking outlook on this shit.
So
it's all good.
Yeah, we're still taking questions too.
Yeah, man.
Dude, this shit with the COVID and now the riots and
yeah, it's been hectic.
Yeah, we have so fucking little free time trying to keep the business running and trying to just do what we got to do. So we're not bullshitting when we're saying we're reading the questions. We're just squeezing these fucking recordings in in just what little free time that we have. So
we enjoy it.
Yeah, please keep sending them. One will probably pop out in a whole episode like we just did. Will come out of it. So if you have any questions, email us at graffitimachine@gmail.com.
Oh, don't forget to check out Bus on the latest Legends Thursday podcast. That shit was fucking hilarious, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, shout out to Legends Thursday. They're back. I'm super stoked that Legends Thursday is back. So check them out on Instagram. It's LT_graffiti_podcast. Or you can just do in the search thing, type Legends Thursday. It should pop up. All right. So, rate, review, subscribe, fucking iTunes. We would appreciate it. And share it, whatever. Fucking.
Grateful for you all.
Yeah. Thank you all very much and stay safe.
Yes, sir.
All right. Later.
Peace.